Hey guys, and welcome back to another Generation Y. My name is Mark. I'm from the UK. This is my friend Dan, and he is from the Southeast United States.
That's right. Hey, what's up?
What's going on?
What's going on?
How are you
Yeah.
today?
Life isn't bad, man. Had a interesting time last night, but say the least. But we can talk about that later, maybe before we get off. But just sometimes life comes at you, and you're like, come on, man, like, come on,
Yeah.
and like, I think when you get there's a part of like when someone's criticizing you and they're like doing it to be mean, but there is a truth there, like that is something that I think everybody needs to have happen once in a while. But it's something that just goes, man, like I'm not hurting anybody. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because like I've been thinking a lot lately about my views of the world. You know that, like, you listen to the show, you on Zoobox and stuff, and I've talked here, and it's like, someone said something to me the other day. They're like, and none of the ideas you have are yours. And you're like, oh shit, it's a good question. It's a good thing to think about. Like, well, what are my views? Like my views, and you go. Part of me defending myself is going to say, well, I mean, I'm reading new information. I'm taking it in. Like I'm exploring it. And yeah, I guess like there is part of that where you regurgitate other people's ideas, right? It's kind of like in this baby stage of this like infantile stage of development of new ideas. Like I would say that there is that part where you borrow, but that it bothered me in a way that made me think, and which is good, and you can't be mad at somebody, whether or not they were trying to be a good person. That doesn't matter, but there is even some truth there, I guess. But it's something that I've been really thinking about a lot lately, because I've been reading so much this past year, probably the most I've read since, I don't know, I was 13 or something, 14 probably. And you're getting bombarded with all this new stuff. And I guess, how do you break it down? What forms an idea? Like, what is that process of you changing? And like, you're going to offend people because you're not the same person that you were, and that's something that I think people don't understand. It's kind of like, when someone says, oh, like being in the military is not a real job.
Well,
I mean, technically, I guess they're right. Yeah, like that's not a
it's
valuable.
not normal. It's not a usual job, I guess.
Right. But someone told me, they're like, you really have no real life experience. And I'm like, I guess like there's some truth to that,
Yeah, but can I just quickly say, with regards to that, I do completely understand, like, when somebody says you're I don't know, something like you take advantage of the situations that you are insulting or that you're saying are bad. I'm not saying that people say that to me. I'm just using that as an example. And my feelings on that, or like just hypocrisy in your views compared to your lifestyle, or what other people view as your lifestyle. But the thing is, at the end of the day, people are going to live to how they can live. They're going to take advantage of the things they can take advantage of, and that doesn't mean that they can't have opinions on things. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're only allowed to speak on things, the things that you exactly live your life to, then people are never going to be able to talk about anything really, except for
Well,
exactly what their life is doing.
it's kind of like, if you're going to be having
And I'm
a
talking about
discussion,
freedoms and stuff, like in
right?
being exactly right. I'm saying, like, so if you live in a country where you do have guns and you talk about gun ownership, or you live in a country where you don't have guns and you talk about gun ownership, I don't think it matters. I think if you're talking about something in principle, because you've sat down and you've had a long time to think about it, and you've formed your own position on that, regardless of what your country state is or even what your own state of ownership is, I don't think it matters for me.
Yeah. No. I mean, I agree. I agree to some degree. Just I agree to some degree, right? But there is that point where if you like, did I get like that? I started asking myself, I'm like, did I pick the easier path by joining the military? Like because some people have that opinion for sure that I
That's
know.
crazy to me.
They're like, you wanted to run away from home, you wanted to escape, so you chose the easiest path out. And
I
because I
disagree.
caused great offense to somebody I'm close to,
Okay.
recently, because I said, like, I viewed moving home after getting out of the military as a weakness. And that was
Okay.
like, this person didn't enjoy that because that's kind of what they did, right? They moved back home and stuff. And it's not a criticism of anyone else. It's just my view.
Just so wait, just clear that up again. You mean moving in with your parents, or moving back to your old town, or moving
Yeah,
from your
back
old town?
even back to your old town in a way. And let me explain why. Like, I think it's because, in my personal view, what did I see from most people who got out of the military? 95% all go back home. They all go back to their hometown, and I just saw that as not like criticizing them, but I left my hometown because I wanted to go do something else. Like, I wanted to go explore and do other things. And so I always viewed it as this giving up in a way. Like, because I didn't see the end of my journey of the military as like the end of my experiment. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
if anything, the military was the beginning of my experiment.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to rush back to a familiar spot. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want to rush back to that thing that I left. And it's people like take that as like me saying that you're like a loser if you go home. I don't think you're a loser, but I would have felt like a loser, me personally. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, it just comes down to the fact that everybody is different. Like some people,
Oh
all they
yeah.
want to do after they've spent. So, like, I live 10 minutes away from two US military bases, and I see cars going around with Florida number plates, and I think, man, you are so far from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like many people, geez, if I lived in Florida, like, if my hometown was somewhere near Florida or somewhere in Florida, I would probably be thinking, I cannot wait to get back to Florida.
Yeah.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
No, for
everyone's
sure. But
different.
I just think it's more of a psychological thing for me than it is a want, or like, it's just, I felt like it was my duty to not rush back home. Like,
But I think you're deeper than a lot of people.
I don't know if I'm deeper. I think I had this experience when I was getting out. Like, everyone acts like getting out of the military like was the easy part. It was the hard part, in a lot of ways. You're uprooting your life and everything that you've known. And people just think that's like, that was a big risk for me.
Mm,
And I said, well, I'm taking all this risk. Why would I go back home? Even when I had hit really hard times in Portland and I left, dude, I was so destitute in when I first got to Alabama. I mean, that was tight living. It was tight living.
mm.
Working on a horse farm, and the stables and everything. And I just did what I had to do to survive. But it was part of that experience. And but that's all I want to say. I guess it's like, maybe you're right. Maybe it is just that I have a different perspective on life and how I want to live my life. But it's just weird that I can't criticize something, like you said, like I can't criticize it because like my experience is devalued compared to somebody else's because of my military service, which is weird. That's like such a weird thing to say. And I
Yeah.
was just like, I mean, are they right? There may be some truth there,
It's
but
definitely different in the US as well because, excuse me, because the US is so fucking massive.
it is
Like in
big.
the
Yeah.
UK, like the furthest I could move from home would be like about 350 miles away.
Oh, so you're talking about like 4 hours,
Yeah.
5 hours.
Okay, maybe a bit longer than like, I don't know, 450 miles away. I think the UK is like 800 or 750 miles from its
Right.
longest distances away. But
Yeah.
because I'm in the middle, I could basically go 400 miles in either direction.
And that's
And
still pretty big. 850
it is
miles is still
big, but that's the
big.
very most.
Yeah, that's
That's
true. In the United
and
States, I think it's like 20. or something like
Yeah.
25, something like that.
It's like 2,000 and something.
It might even be more than that. Honestly, I have no idea. It's big. It's a big old
It's
place.
massive. And my point is, because most people in the UK live in England, they don't live in Scotland because it's only like 15% is farmable. And that also adds to like where you can build houses. It's very mountainous. It's very wet. And so most people live in England, and England is not big. Like England is like 130,000 square kilometers or miles, which is like a Florida and a bit. And so in England, especially, like even if moving far away from home, I think most people would count that as like 2 hours. That would be far away from home. So in America as well, because you have different states, it's a massive thing to like go from, say, New Jersey to New Mexico, or even New Jersey to South Carolina would be like a big move.
Yeah,
And
you feel the shift as a
yeah,
person who's moved from like Massachusetts to South Carolina. I mean, it is a big
right.
cultural shift and
Yeah,
obviously geographic shift, but it's definitely there are a lot of varying cultures and different. You can go from
laws
just
and
it's a pretty complicated little place.
wages,
Wages
wage
sometimes,
changes.
it's
Yeah.
it's pretty nuts.
So,
Gas is cheaper in Mississippi right now than
oh,
Alabama, which sucks.
okay, so that's a decent segue.
Okay, great.
I need to rant about this, and I'm really intrigued on your opinion. I was going to do like a standalone video, but I've been terrible with those. I think I've done like one in 3 weeks. Um, yeah, so basically, our like conservative government with Boris at the top, and I'll just premise this with for the people that are like, well, next time you should vote Labour. I couldn't do that myself because I just feel like Labour are just too insane. Uh, if they weren't on board the woke train and everything was just pure insanity, and I have friends that are former Labour voters and they're kind of moderate left wingers, and even they are like, no, I didn't vote Labour last time, and I couldn't vote them again because they're crazy.
So labor is like your progressive, really
Yeah, like the far
liberal.
left. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And then we kind of have a
socialist.
corporate left called the Liberal Democrats. Um, so your Democrats are probably a combination of our Democrats and Labour, but generally people compare Labour to your Democrats.
Mhm.
Um, basically, like, so yeah, the Conservatives have been on board this green movement, and I'm not going to get too far into what I think or don't think about that. Well, I probably will, but I'll try not to. Um, and one of the things they've been doing with that is, without anybody noticing, they introduced 5% ethanol into fuel, petrol, gas. And no, they didn't really tell anyone because 5% isn't too bad. It's not going to make that much difference on your car. And then recently, about 6 months ago, nah, it's probably 3 months ago, I started hearing that they were going to put 10%. So it's called E10. And that kind of, I was thinking, like, what difference is that going to have on the car? Because I know ethanol can sometimes give you more power. So I was kind of excited about that. But then I heard that actually it's not going to do anything except supposedly reduce emissions and fuck up the fuel system in cars over 9 years old. And so when I went to I think I had aircon regassed in my car, and I was sitting in the waiting room looking at the wall, and there's this poster going through all the things, all the effects that it can have on your car, like this new E10. And it's like, excessive wear on the cylinder walls. But the biggest damage is that it eats through fuel lines and fuel seals. And so I was kind of a bit pissed off about that. But I kind of presumed it wouldn't be in the cheap fuel because the cheap fuel is for the working class. That's what I thought. But no, like our budget fuel now, which is £1.45 a litre, so that's roughly $8.40 a gallon.
Man,
That's our
shit.
cheapest fuel. Of the four fuels on the forecourt, that's the cheapest fuel. That one is the 10% fuel. If you want a fuel that is compatible with a petrol car over 9 years old, you're paying £1.65 a litre at the moment, which is about $9.80 a litre. So, in my opinion, the way I'm looking at this, and tell me if I'm wrong, is I think that this is a kind of a stealth-ish because they introduced E5 without telling anyone really. This one they told a few more people. Essentially, if you are the type of person that owns a car that's older than 9 years, you're going to be more poor. And if you have that car, you're going to be the person that unless you want to screw your engine, you're now going to be having to put the most expensive type of fuel in your car. And I think that they're doing it to get more people to get rid of their older petrol cars and try and replace them with electric vehicles. And I'm just fucking enraged at the whole thing because we all know the figures have been out for years that you would have to drive if you have a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever petrol car, gasoline car, you would have to drive that car something like 30,000 miles a year for 100 years to put the same carbon footprint that, a brand new Tesla would put out. And the fact that they're basically stealth taxing the lower end of the working class just really pisses me off, man. I can't stop thinking about it because I know this is all about green crap, and it's just like everyone has been saying is going to happen. It's just a green tax on the working class, and at the best, if it's not that, it's trying to push people into buying EV cars, which are way too much money. Like I think the cheapest, like semi-decent, and by semi-decent I mean a car that does more than 50 miles an hour and gives you a range that is usable, like a range that's 200 miles or more, is like 23 grand or something, 25,000 pounds, so like $32,000. The whole thing just drives me nuts, man. It really pisses me off.
Well, I mean, they have to find a way to move population decisions, right? They have to find
Yeah.
a way to encourage, coerce, or push people towards a new direction that they want. So
Yeah.
obviously they will, a guy that makes, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I
It's
just thinking
insane.
that it's $8 a gallon is already pretty bad. So maybe the Nord Stream pipeline will be good for you guys. I don't know, like Nord Stream 2 for the Russians, maybe be able to get you cheaper fuel. But the thing is, we all know Teslas and the batteries and like all that stuff. You still have to mine it. You still have to destroy nature, like, this, that, or other. But if they're not looking towards nuclear energy, now listen, let's say nuclear energy becomes the predominant, because that is green energy in comparison to, gas, natural gas or
Basically
coal.
anything else.
Yeah. I mean, literally anything else. Would electric cars be good if they can make it to where you can get 1,000-mile range going 75 miles an hour,
Or even like 600 mile, 500 mile. I can live
Well,
with 500 mile.
I mean, yeah, because you would
It's a
think
small
that would
country.
be decent. But then what happens with battery replacement? What happens, these
Yeah.
things add up very quickly because and not to mention it's all automated. So you're not going to be able to fix it yourself. You're not going to be able to do a lot of these things. Like,
Yeah.
it's
There's
it's
so
going to
many
cause a lot of
problems.
problems. Yeah.
So many problems, dude. Like
Well,
what frustrates me is like how many problems there are that people are not thinking about. So you think about like how many garages there are that, you know, they're all set up to work on diesel and petrol cars. Like I know really good garages that really have a very basic level of knowledge of working on EVs. What's going to happen with all of them? What's going to happen with all the petrol stations? Like, what's going to happen? More to the point, what is going to happen with I think it's like 13 million cars. What's going to happen to the millions of petrol and diesel cars that are still being sold today? And they're already trying to push people off those cars.
I
Like the
think they're trying to.
values and
Well, I think they're trying to get it to the point where in like let's say 2100,
mm,
they're going to be able to have a more electric vehicle society. I mean, that's ultimately what they want. Electric vehicles are more easily controlled. You can turn them off and stuff with all this stuff, automated stuff. It's not going to be a fun. I think in the short term we're going to be fine. I think there's going to be a lot of pressures, but what you're about to see is probably one of the largest cultural backlashes in in probably since like the Spanish Inquisition or something. Like when you go too far, you start fucking with people's wallets. You start, and like in England, you guys are already getting taxed out like crazy, and in the United States, not nearly as bad, but it's definitely edging and progressing to be more and more like that.
what
So
sort of taxes do you guys pay?
I think it's depending on what bracket you fall in too. So yeah, I mean, I was talking to my little brother and he was like, dude, like probably 25%, 30%, 25 to 30% if you
Yeah.
include state and federal taxes. So
So
it's
that's
some,
the thing. Like,
yeah. But then you're also getting taxed at the gas pump. Then you're also getting taxed
Yeah.
in the stores. You're getting taxed there. You're getting taxed there.
So you guys don't get taxed, or you do get taxed when you buy things at a store?
Depends on what state you're in. So like Florida does not have an income tax, but it does have a tax for everything else. So I mean, like a lot of like it's like, you know, probably 8 or 9% sales tax. You know, so that's pretty high. So you're paying a lot at the end of the day.
So we get 23%, excuse me, 18% income tax. But then you get a 20% VAT, like value added tax on anything you buy, unless you're running your own business, like, or, you know, unless you're a business, you don't pay that, so you can claim it back. So a lot of self-employed people just put everything under their business. But yeah, man, like if you're just a normal person and you're working at like in a supermarket, you're getting taxed 18%, which is 5% less than our.
And that's a national tax.
That's just income tax. Yeah, across the board, income tax for the whole of the UK, 18%. And then if you earn above, I think once you get above 45,000 or 40,000, then everything above that is 25 or 30%.
Above
and then value added tax.
45,000?
Say again?
That's not even like a rich person.
No, well, that's pounds, obviously. So add 35% to make it dollars. But yeah.
Yeah.
But there, and then 20% value added tax on everything. So anything you buy, whether it's £100 worth of petrol or whether it's a £500 TV, you have to pay a 20% VAT tax on that.
But is it on the total accumulation of the price? So if it's $100, you pay 120.
It's already in there. So like if you see a TV for 500 quid, then whatever 80 quid of that would have been VAT.
So that's how they sneak it in.
Yeah.
They get that ass somehow.
Fucking crazy.
It is a pretty unique thing about our economic system. It makes it, and this is part of that centralized banking, and they can control interest rates and quantitative easing and all this crazy shit. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I don't know, something seems up, something doesn't seem right, and especially in America, you know, a lot of these big corporations are subsidized by social programs. Like I think Walmart employees, like a good deal of them, are under some sort of Medicaid, Medicare, or some sort of social program, food stamps, you know, something to that effect, to where they need assistance because they can't get it from the corporations. At the same time, corporations are getting subsidies from the government and getting tax breaks. So you're going like, if you're not paying your employees enough to live, so the government gets to come in and subsidize that for you and help you. Are you really doing the best you can as a company and a business? It's probably more complicated than people want to admit, but when it comes down to the green energy stuff, how can they tell me that this is the future? You know, like I think emissions have fallen 50% in the United States in the last 20 or 30 years. If I'm not mistaken, it's something like that, or at least
I'm just interested in all of it.
Yeah, I just know it has fallen in the recent years, mainly due to like fracking and natural gas usage over coal. So that is a potentially good thing, but to say that we have to upset our entire energy industry or sector just to make people feel warm and fuzzy, like, you know, at the end of the day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's 70% since 1970.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work on that, and the idea that we haven't heavily, because what I think it was Reagan wanted to build like 150 nuclear power plants or something like that. It never got done. But if they would invest heavily into nuclear power, which today it's waste, like Fukushima was old as dirt, you know, and water got in the reactor, whatever. We can make them, especially in places like the United States. There's so much land that you can find a place.
Fault line.
Oh, were they? I mean, you're on an island. The whole
fault line.
The whole thing is on a fault line. It's a fucking island, you know.
Well, we're not, but Japan is, but like, we're not.
And it's a little island. It's not as big as, you know, I would imagine. I mean, it's not nearly as big as England. It's really long and skinny, isn't Japan?
New Zealand, Japan is like 20% bigger than the UK. It's bigger than,
but it's long. It's just really long.
It's long and skinny, like you said.
Yeah. But there is on the United States, it is so much land out here that can be used, and if we can invest it in green energy, is nuclear energy. It is the most efficient. It's going to give you the best bang for your buck. It can last a long time, and why would we not do that? Like, why are we not investing in the clearest option? So Michael Schellenberger wrote a book called Apocalypse Never. And Schellenberger, he was on Joe Rogan. If you want to go listen to that, it's a really good episode. He kind of breaks down like people like Greta Thunberg and like this climate alarmism class, like
He's
in
a
the
former
UK.
lefty from California, isn't he?
Yeah, he used to work for George Soros Foundation, like all this. And he was talking about like Extinction Rebellion in the UK. You know, like it's you know, like these people are not living in reality. It's a religion, and that's what he's like. That is the scariest thing about a lot of this stuff. It has become like people are fanatical about it. They have made it like some sort of religion to them, and they only care about meeting their end goals, which is their God, which is zero emissions, which is impossible.
Absolutely.
It's impossible to get to zero emissions. You're never going to get there. And if you want to talk about trying to limit our carbon, like why aren't we pulling carbon from the air? I know Exxon's been working on stuff like that for a while, carbon capture technology. But the same point, I'm like, well, carbon's good for the earth too, because that's what plants need to grow. And like, how if you keep fucking with nature, she will fuck back, and she's gonna fuck back harder than you can imagine.
Yeah. I actually heard something the other day about, you can't take, and I'm sure all the greenies would be laughing at this, but yeah, I heard the same thing that, you have to be careful in certain locations pulling too much carbon from the air. Because if you don't know where the carbon is coming from and the levels of carbon, then like you say, then you're fucking with the trees and everything like algae. But yeah, like, dude, what he was saying about Extinction Rebellion, there's now this group called Insulate Britain, and like as their name would kind of hint at, their kind of movement. They're all the same people from Extinction Rebellion. Their thing is about, insulate the houses to stop heat loss, to save energy, to put out less of a carbon footprint. But the problem is, like, the UK is number 2 in the world on reducing its carbon footprint in the last 25 years. Like, we've reduced our carbon footprint by 96% since 1970. And we've reduced particulate emissions by 93% since 1970. And we're 1% of the globe. And I feel like, geez, man, like, if we're doing this well and you're still gluing yourselves to the pavement, like, dude, there was an ex GP, so like just a medical practitioner, glued his face to the pavement.
I saw that,
like to a road, and then when they were trying to peel him off, he's like, you're hurting me, and they're like, you glued your face to the pavement.
Yeah, what do you want us to do here?
What the fuck were you expecting?
There is, I definitely, I don't think, I think the craziest thing I ever heard of, I never obviously saw it, was a Russian protester. Let's just say he went to the Russian town square, Moscow or wherever it was, I don't know, and he nailed his genitals to the ground.
Fuck.
Fucking yeah. I mean, that guy's a little more hardcore than this fucking pussy over here just gluing his face.
Gluing his face.
Yeah, you're like, yo, like, are you okay, man? I mean, what are you doing?
Meanwhile, in Russia.
Yeah, okay. I was all for gay rights. I'm like, but you don't got no genitals anymore. You're screwed, man. I just hope it was just the skin. Like, partly, I'm like, I don't know, but I did hear it was the phalanx, as you know. As far as I hear, I don't know. I mean, who knows? But still, that's a ballsy move.
It was a very ballsy move. He put a lot of skin in the game.
Yes, he did a lot, and yes, he was just happened to be playing golf.
Yeah, get it? It was a beautiful. But the thing is, with the Russian police, that they didn't get, like, in the UK.
Oh,
they're all super soft, and they're like, oh, we mustn't pull them to. I'd be like, get the fuck out of the road. In Russia, they just walked up to him, grabbed him by the collar, and were like, yeek.
I don't know, man. I don't think anyone could look at a man's genitals nailed
Yeah,
to
that's
the
true.
ground and just want to rip him up. You could be like, like I don't know, man. I don't
Yeah.
know, because it would just be crazy. There is enough to be said that protesting, they have the right to do it.
Yeah.
Disrupting traffic, being peaceful, they have the right to argue what they want to argue for. I mean, it's like, is that really how you get people on your side?
No.
Be persuasive. You need to. I think Tim talks like create culture, and which the left wing, of Hollywood and like the industries that make art and entertainment are very climate conscious. While they like literally while they destroy the climate making their movies, but whatever. Or like when
Mm.
people go to the COP26, the climate whatever thing, and they're all flying jets, it's like everyone owns homes on the edges of on the coast and everything, and you're like, listen,
Yeah.
man,
Key West.
this is my hardest thing, is like I have to ask myself, there's two questions I always ask myself when I hear people talking about stuff: who's making the money, and why would the government want it to happen? Because those are
Yeah.
the two things that matter to me. Everything else is like the green business. It's a business now. They know they have a foothold in culture and
Mm.
in the government. They got people to believe that the end is coming, the end is nigh, or whatever it is through this climate
Yeah.
alarmism, and they now can make billions. It's kind of like this. Let's look at Pfizer. Let's look at Moderna and all these other companies. And Johnson Johnson. They saw an opportunity where people were panicking,
Hmm.
and they knew they could make money. At the end of the day, this is what this is about. So they saw people panicking. They could provide a service to that could be the cure-all for your panic. Which
Yeah.
we all now know is a little, kind of bullshit. But you know what I mean? So they
Mm.
knew that the government was looking for something, or they will do anything to just get reelected. They don't care. The lobbyists are there, and they just go, okay, screw it. We will give you qualified immunity, give us your vaccines, and we'll make the small people shut up.
Mm.
And then we'll give them the little bit that they need to make themselves security, right? And uh, is it some nefarious plot to destroy the fuel industry? I don't know. But I think really what it comes down to is if people just stopped listening to Greta Thunberg, stopped listening to these alarmists, and like listen to more rational people, like, hey, I think maybe we can get to a point where we can all use electric cars. But what happens if we do nuclear, and then maybe someday we can get there, but nuclear should be the primary focus over green cars, which we know aren't actually green.
Mm. I think one of the biggest problems for me with electric cars that people are not talking about. So from what I understand, I have a friend with a Tesla, but I don't know him well. Is because he's more of a uh, like he works with my missus, so he's a good dude, but he's not like friendly enough with me, or I'm not friendly enough with him that we've ever actually spent enough time to sit down and talk about it. But he has a Tesla. From what I understand, I think you save roughly 60. So the cost of charging every night is roughly 50 or 60% over gasoline, over petrol. But the
Is your
trouble
energy Are
is,
your energy costs cheap there?
I don't think they're that bad. I'll compare them in a second. But probably like in terms of, I mean, we have gas, so like gas central heating and everything like that. And then I think gas and electric, we probably pay 90 a month. Like I don't
90
know how
pounds?
£90. So that's like 120, $110.
120? Okay. It's definitely getting more expensive here, I can tell you
Well,
that.
this is what I was coming on to. So we have been told that there is a looming energy crisis and that there is a looming energy cost increase.
Oh
And
yeah.
what my point is to people about electric cars is this. So some people, and I think this is a little bit of alarmism, but like, geez, if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But some people have said that it could be up to 45% between this year and next year. So for the people that are buying Teslas because they're like, hey, like it's going to save me loads of money on petrol. Like if you're paying another 45% next year, then suddenly it doesn't look quite so attractive, especially if you have to replace that £12,000 battery in the Tesla. And the thing that really worries me is if you end up getting, so if your left-wing government starts to go more socialist or full socialist and they own how much you're paying for electric, you do not want to be plugged into the national grid for your car. Like your car is kind of your freedom. You know, you can go to any one of the thousands of independent petrol stations, fill up with some gas, some fuel, and off you go. You can go wherever you want. If you have to rely on the government or big energy companies to charge up your car, dude, it's game over. Like if
Well, it creates a
everybody,
monopoly for sure, like a complete stranglehold on your life.
I just think like you want as many. It's the same with like money and savings and like where you keep your capital. So, which actually leads me on to something else, but you want really to kind of keep things in as many different places as you can. Like however little or however much you've got, you want some in your house, some in gold, some in crypto, some in antiques, some in your hobbies, some in cars, whatever. You don't want it all in one basket. And it's the same the other way around. Like where you're spending your money, where you're getting your energy from, you don't want to be getting it all from the same place. You want to be using as many different markets and different companies to get your various different energies as you can. And if you're getting everything from your electricity grid and then that all goes up by 20%, everything goes up by 20%. And that's what worries me with electric cars.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. It's stupid logically to be solely reliant on one type of energy, period.
Yeah.
Okay. Like whether it's nuclear, whether it's just gas, whether it's just coal, whether it's just, this quote unquote green energy, which we
Mm.
know just can't sustain. You're always going to have an infrastructure of gas or nuclear to support it or coal. So it's just a pipe dream. Honestly, um, I don't like it when the government gets involved in anything. Really, I don't think it's a good idea if the government comes in and decides like, well, you're not allowed to own cars like
Mm.
that are of this year, this make, this model. And you're like, well, what happens if that's all I can afford?
Exactly,
Like,
dude.
what am I gonna
Exactly.
like? What am I gonna do if I can't afford? Well, they're like, well, by 2050 there should be enough used ones,
Yeah,
or
exactly, man.
whatever.
That's
And you're
what I
like,
say.
yeah, it's like it's
So,
bullshit.
like, everybody, so a couple
I
of,
mean, that literally sounds like Cuba. Like it's like, oh,
yeah,
you can only buy state like made tomato sauce.
yeah.
It's like
Dude,
weird.
I saw somebody doing a review on a car today. There's a Chinese car, and they were saying this is going to be China's first like really big foray into the West with cars. And obviously, essentially, China is leaving the petrol and diesel stuff to the West, and they're saving all of their energy and their power to push it into EV because they think EV is the future. And the guy was talking about the car, and so for those of you that don't know, um, a sort of middle of the range Tesla is about 400 horsepower, 450 horsepower. It's about 900 pounds-feet of torque, I think, give or take. So you get like the one good thing about it is that you get a nice swift acceleration. They haven't got massive top end, but they'll still do a good speed. And they'll do 0 to 60 in like 3.9 seconds, like a middle of the range, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, something like that. This car, the dude's like, and one of the greatest things about it is that it's one engine, it's 160 horsepower, so you don't have to faff around with choosing that. It's one gearbox and it's one charging type. So you don't have to worry about choosing. And I was like, how very communist. Like we don't even get to choose anymore. We will all just be driving around in shit boxes. And like you
Yep.
said, if if somebody wants like a fairly big, comfortable car, but that's going to cost them a bit more. So they get a little bit of an older car. They get a car that's maybe 3 or 4 years older because they want that kind of luxury and they're happy to risk a little bit of maintenance with it. You don't get that with the electric cars, like you say. I've had people say, "Well, you'll be able to buy like a nice small one, a little city car." I don't want a city car. Like I want something that's either pacey, has a bit of speed, or maybe something that has, I want some benefit to the car. I don't want it to just get me from A to B. Do you know what I mean? I want a choice.
Yeah, listen, I think it all comes down to choice. I think that's the main argument is whether if you want to drive, they're acting like gas cars or petrol or diesel, whatever. They're acting like they're uh, bombs or something now. They're like, oh,
Mm,
like this is so dangerous. It's like you can't tell a country like Uganda, you're not allowed to run coal. How are they going to industrialize? Like, what are these people going to do once the
mm,
first world stops producing? these products, it affects the third world greatly too. And there is going to be a reckoning coming. There is going to, but this is why I'm talking about the cultural change. People are, especially in the United States, I think things are changing. Like there's an election happening today between
I was going to talk to you about
that. Glenn Youngkin and Democrat Terry McAuliffe. But guess what? Polls are being shut down right now. They're having phone issues. Weird stuff is already starting to happen.
Shut the front door.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not even. I've only seen a couple things that said that, but
because when I last looked, it was 49 versus 49.3. So it was Youngkin had just gone past McAuliffe. Youngkin was on 49.3%.
In the election
Virginia.
or the polling? In the polling or the election?
Oh, in the votes that they had taken so far.
Right. So
this is posting and everything else.
We'll see. Listen, I have no idea, but I think if he wins this, it's going to be a referendum. That's going to say something to the Democrats. That's why they really want Glenn Youngkin to win, because I mean, I think Joe Biden won that state by 10 points during the last presidential election. So they're like, like that. Those people hated Trump. They hated him, but they're sick and tired of hearing about Trump. They're
Virginians.
Sick. Well, yeah, I mean that's why Joe Biden won by 10 points, right? That would say that there's a good deal of people that didn't like Trump. Yeah, but if Youngkin wins, then it means that Trump was the issue. It means that Trump was really the problem, not necessarily the message, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. They're already starting to say that we won't know for a few days, like whatever. Like we will have to see. We'll have to see. But my main point is there's definitely a counterculture movement happening when you look at like Rumble and Locals, like kind of coming together, merging, creating a bigger company to kind of take on the big tech. They have their own server space. They have their own infrastructure. Parallel institutions are popping up all over the place. And then it's suddenly not becoming cool to be woke anymore. Gen Zers are actually, even though you see libs of TikTok on Twitter and like all these really crazy videos, that's a minority of people. A lot of Gen Zers are coming up and being like, yo, like I want you to leave me the hell alone. That's the mentality. Look at France. France is on the verge of revolution. A lot of people are like, they're on the verge. These young people who are like 16 to 24 are fucking like talking about beheading Macron. Like they're like being serious. These people are like, we're not fucking around anymore. Like you're not going to tell me, a person who's unaffected by this.
Not that we
virus.
endorse that, obviously.
No, we don't endorse it. But this is just so people are saying out there that like you're not going to force me to do anything. And I think there is this type of right now what we're having is a identity crisis of the boomer generation. So the boomer generation has sat there and gone, we fucked up the climate, we fucked up the economy, we fucked up everything,
everything.
Like, so we need to save our image. They need to save their image. This is what this is about. To say that they tried to do something great before their generation's over. We brought
what? I think that could be a big part of it.
I think that's part of the psychological side of it.
I think
They're
you're
kind
right.
of like we have fucked up so royally.
Yeah.
We went from the 80s and the 90s having all this good fun and doing coke and ripping, and everyone's just running around like
buying houses, buying cars. Like we can do that.
Then 2008 was the oh shit, we might have went too far. We got a little trigger happy, just blowing our loads all over these, mortgages and all this stuff. Like we just didn't care because they thought they were invincible. That was one of the first signs where people really, the young people especially, started looking at the government as like a problem. The people in the government, like they really are. And that's why when Obama came in, they were so happy. That, this is like the first black guy, he's super progressive, he's changed. Then he just kept doing the same thing, status quo, but he got Obamacare. But this is them trying to salvage their reputations. And I feel like the 100-year experiment of Woodrow Wilson and FDR and, Nixon and even Reagan and such, like, is coming to an end. And that includes Trump. Trump was the guy that made people wake up, not just to the machine that was exposed, like the bureaucratic state and all this stuff, it was he exposed his own generation. And Trump should never run for president again. Trump's job is done, I think. I think
he was
when he didn't give up pardon Assange and didn't pardon Snowden, that was kind of where I think my journey ended with Trump.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people. Yeah. I definitely think that America, whatever anyone thinks, and I'll be very, I don't know if I'll be around, but I'll be very interested to see what the history books say about Trump, because I do think that love him, hate him, or not feel really anything about him, he was actually something very, very important and needed
Yes.
and good for America. Whether
Yes.
you think that what he did was okay, whether you think it was bad, whether you think he made a few key errors, some bad people, there are not many powerful countries that get somebody completely outside of the establishment to come in and make the establishment look like the clown show that it fucking
Oh
is.
man, it made them look so incompetent, and it
Yeah,
made them look childish and
yeah,
vindictive. And
yeah.
these are not
Petty and
enlightened. They're not enlightened.
no.
These, like, and that's why I've been reading Joel Kotkin's The Rise of Neo-Feudalism, and it is like hilarious. Like, I think he proves in the book, and I think he's right. He's like, listen, these elites, they think they're educated, so that makes them better. They think because they can run tech industries and they're worth billions of dollars that they're kings. Like they just they deserve to rule you. And the banks are the same way. Like, how can these
Yeah.
bankers say anything to us that shit about finances when you guys were the ones that completely screwed our economy? That is where you started seeing the inflation just go.
Yeah,
Like, you saw
absolutely.
the money supply was because
Dude,
of them.
let me just say this real quick. What always blows my mind, especially actually in America, like this, I more hear about this in America when I'm reading books or watching documentaries, is how similar in value, like $5 was in, say, 1900, to how close it was it's still in like 1960. And it's the same in the UK, like how similar like £5 was, or not £5 maybe, but like the price of a bar of chocolate compared to wages was in the UK all the way back in like the 1800s or even the 1700s to how it was up till like the 1950s, 60s. And then you look at the inflation, like, and like the price of things compared to wages and how massive the gap has gotten every decade from there. Dude, it's crazy. Like I said, I was reading this thing about Russia and they were talking about how Peter the Great went over to England because he wanted to see how back then, like obviously the UK and the Netherlands were like the West, and like everywhere else was the East. And he wanted to see how we did all of our shipbuilding and our architecture and stuff like that, because back then, which was probably like, I'm probably getting this a bit wrong, but it was around 1700 to 1720, something like that. And back then, Russia was just kind of thought of as like this big, brutish, backwards kind of small little, well, not small physically, but kingdom, small in terms of power. And he wanted to go over to England and see how they did stuff. And they were talking about the prices of things. And then they gave you like, this is the average wage, and this is how much it was to buy a loaf of bread, or this is the average wage, and this is how much it was to buy a small house. And dude, it was not far off what it was when my parents bought a house in the 60s. It was not far off, like in terms of wage to, and then they were talking about something in dollars as well. And I was amazed at how similar it was to sort of 50 years ago. But what we've seen, like you're saying, over the last 50, 60 years, it's just gone absolutely bananas. And I think we're seeing that now. And that's why they are struggling to know what to do with workers in the future, because they've rinsed that kind of the borrowing money in the hope of growth. They've rinsed that so much that now they don't know what to do, because that you can't really do manufacturing work and compete with India and China.
Well, so do you think there needs to be a great reset then?
I
Because,
don't
like, is
really
that really the, maybe that is, let's say,
I don't
take
know
all the
how you do
conspiracy
that.
well, let's take all the conspiracy theory stuff out,
Okay.
and like Klaus Schwab and all these guys or whatever, World Economic Forum, maybe they have a point. Is there a point where they're like, maybe we do need a great reset of the global economy, and you have to have everyone on the same page.
Well,
now, like I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying, but if things are out of our control,
yeah,
and like things are just spiraling,
yeah,
what are you supposed to do? Is like your nation or your Europe or whatever?
yeah. No, I get it. Well, I can't give you. I mean, if I could, I'd be a rich man. I can't give you a definitive answer of what we should do. But the reason that I don't think you would be able to do a global reset is because if you did a global reset, you would be purely and only benefiting Westerners like us, and you would be massively, massively disadvantaging like Easterners. So people in Indonesia, in China, other than Japan, you would be disadvantaging the people that societies have not done that.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I could go over to Thailand and buy a mansion for the price that I could sell this for, or I could go to Indonesia and buy
That
like
might be the move, dude.
well, exactly,
Honestly,
yeah, exactly. But
it might. But then again, like, how are you going to subsidize your wage and like live? But
yeah,
like,
but
you got to
exactly,
think.
but
You got to think though. There is a truth to that though.
yeah, there is, of
Like,
course there is.
why are things so cheaper, so much cheaper in these
That's
countries?
why. That's partly why. And so I don't think you'd be able to get away with a global reset because the countries that haven't done that are going to be like, no, like why would we want to reset our economy? But yeah, I mean, it's very difficult when your kind of elites have just been borrowing and then promising growth and then borrowing and then promising growth because you get to a point where everything is so expensive in comparison to wages that it's just going to stop eventually. Like you cannot just keep going to the point. Like look at fuel, dude. The poor man's fuel is now basically $10 a gallon. And I know that Joachim, one of our, well, I don't know if he does still watch, but used to watch us. If he is still watching, he will check my maths on that. But I did it just before the show, and I'm pretty sure it's $9.80. Like when your poor man's fuel is $9.80 a gallon, and it's rising, dude. Every week it's like another penny or two. I don't know. That cannot keep going, especially like when a country like China, they will pick their allies. So the UK does what it does because it's picked a side, and that side is America. Same with a country like, well, officially Canada, but I'm not sure whose side they're on at the moment. Or France or Sweden, or they all have picked their side. But when China decides the culture and China decides the economy and the energy economy, I don't know what happens. I don't know what
But
happens.
I mean, maybe this is the way to beat China because China's still using centralized banking. China's still, I mean, their inflation is going to be going crazy. Alibaba just had like that loss of like $350 billion or whatever it was. There's a lot of stuff that is probably going on, even with their economy that we're not aware of. Like a lot of people are thinking of China's economy is doing bad. And I don't know. I don't know. Like, and this is my problem. This is what the rise of neo-feudalism really gets into is like, we have created a society that is based off of experts and authority to managers. So we think that we
Yeah.
should look to an economist because they work at Harvard that they actually mean something
Mm.
when they really fucking don't. Like they're the reason these economists that have been leading us are the reason we're here. Like these are the people that got us here. So it's like we can't. It's kind of like Fauci. Well, he's proven Dr. Fauci for the last 2 years. I think we could all say that, you've done a poor job. And if whatever reason you did a poor job is irrelevant to me at this moment, is that you should be removed from the conversation. But no, what does he want to do? Protect his image because he knows he's at the end of his career.
Yeah.
It's the most dangerous times are people when they're at the end of their careers. That's when they make the most radical decisions in their life, usually. They
Yeah.
kind of go, fuck it. I'm not going to be here. I want to have something to my name. And I
Yeah.
can say that I helped defeat COVID. Even though H1N1 got 69 million people got infected, no one really talked about it. No one really cared. Thousands of people died. No one gave a crap at all in like 2012, whatever it was. No
Who
one
is it
cared.
that put Fauci into his position? Was it
I mean, it was
Reagan
back in
or
something like that. Yeah.
uh,
Like 80s, I think. Because
Christ?
he was there for
Isn't that
the
bananas to you that like somebody?
is
pick
there
someone
that
in the
long.
80s. Yeah, and they're like, yeah, you're still capable of doing that job now.
Yeah.
Speaking of bananas, I have quite an
Yes.
amusing news headline for everyone, just to show people how crazy the internet can be, and also how strict other countries are in terms of people screwing with them. So this is in the news today. Why Syrians face deportation from Turkey over banana jokes.
What?
Um, Laughing and joking on camera, Syrians have been taking part in the latest craze to sweep social media in Turkey. In playful TikTok videos, they've been eating bananas and challenging their friends to do so. The videos seem harmless enough, standard fare for TikTok these days, but while trends come and go, these videos could have lasting consequences for some Syrians. In recent days, Turkish authorities have accused Syrians of inciting hatred for eating bananas in a provocative way. Several Syrians have been arrested and face deportation for eating bananas. In a climate of increasing hostility towards Turkey's large Syrian community, bananas have become a symbol of division and hatred. So, what's the story behind the banana challenge videos? Well, I'm not going to bore you all by reading on, but basically, what it is some of the Syrian refugees, and this is a common kind of refugee thing, and I understand why they do it. Um, for whatever reason, refugees, at least in Europe and seemingly in Turkey as well, they don't come over as a family, they just come over as a single young man. And because of that, they can live in a house, perhaps a two-bedroom house, and they'll live like 10 to a house. So if you're a refugee and you're basically paying $60 a month in rent, you're going to be able to do a lot better than the single dude who's paying $500, $600 for him just for himself in rent. And it's the same with food and with electricity and water and gas and so on and so forth. So the refugees, and we see it some places in the UK as well, they do it a lot better than the domestic single male or single female, I guess, in some of the cases. And so in Turkey, eating a banana means that you're doing fairly well for yourself because it's something that Westerners take for granted. They're like, a banana, what's that? I could buy a million of them tomorrow. But
Hmm.
in Turkey, which I think is like the world's 11th most powerful country, eating
Probably
a
up there. Yeah.
banana, yeah, eating a banana is apparently a sign that you are not poor. And the Syrians are making TikTok videos and memes of like eating a banana and saying, look, we're doing better than you are. And then that became a meme and another meme, and then it's just become this kind of hatred thing where Turkish, I don't know how you'd phrase it, original Turks are kind of getting angry that these Syrians are basically taking the piss out of them by saying, we're doing better than you are in your country.
So they're gonna deport them for that,
Apparently
maybe.
so. Apparently
Yeah,
so.
you don't fuck with Turkish people, man. They don't fuck around.
Hmm.
They don't like take kindly to disrespect. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Then again, it's kind of like a little ridiculous that you're gonna deport
It's
someone
it's a
for a
really
little bit.
bizarre. Yeah.
It is
It's
pretty bizarre.
I can see both sides because on the face of it, you could be like, you're going to deport people for eating bananas and making a meme out of that. That is ridiculous, obviously. But then I guess the deeper issue here is that the
Economic.
refugees who are there to seek refuge from a war, not there to start a new life, are doing better than Turks. And so
Yeah,
that
listen,
is the
they are
problem.
poor. The Turkish people, like for example, like military. I mean, those poor guys get their work to the bone, man. They get work to the bone.
Yeah.
But they would be like, I think in a month they probably make $1,000 equivalent,
Yeah.
maybe $1,000 equivalent. And because I think when I was there, 1 lira, Turkish lira, was like 7. So like equivalent, like it would take 7 Turkish lira to equate $1.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you could go into a Turkish store and buy anything. You wouldn't spend any money. Like it was
Yeah.
easy, like easy there. That is, and their economy is getting worse, like and worse and
Is it?
worse. Oh, yeah, they're in really bad time right now. Inflation's hitting. Like there might, I don't. Like, it's obviously bad everywhere.
Hmm.
But I mean, like Jack Dorsey was tweeting about hyperinflation, and stuff, and it's only happened 62 times in world history of
Hmm.
recorded history has hyperinflation ever happened. And that's where your inflation equates to 50% a month or 1,000% in 1 year.
Jesus.
So like 50% every month basically, and it has to go over 1,000 a year. It's only happened 62 times. Like Venezuela is the most recent example of hyperinflation.
Yeah, and Argentina was like 2008 or something, 2009.
It is rare. So is that going to happen in the West? Because like, what happens if every country hits hyperinflation? Who cares? I guess. Like, does it matter?
I guess if it's the same rate, then it doesn't really matter.
Because I think that's what's been kind of happening with these centralized banks. Inflation keeps happening, crises keep happening, but they're able to maintain while wages are staying pretty much the same though. So it's a really weird. The wealthy are getting wealthy for sure.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if you look at like house prices, I don't know what it's like. I think we've had this before, but in the UK in the 70s, like an average sized house was 3 times the average annual wage. And then now it's 8 times the average annual wage. So that should show people, people that aren't really sure about inflation and they don't know whether to believe it and stuff. That in itself kind of shows you. And also like I know that if you're taking into account, monetary inflation, that wages have essentially stayed the same here. I think they've gone up by 5% in the last 25 years. Like when you take into adjusted for inflation, it's gone up 5%.
Know in the last time wages I think are naturally increasing because of like the worker shortage. So you're seeing companies paying a lot more. Like, hey, please come work. Oh man, it's really one of those. It doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't, and I obviously know I'm not the guy to fix it. Like I don't know what's gonna happen though if we end up like Russia. And when they had their last big one, like, and the thing is, this is really why I think they're trying to get rid of paper currency. They're going to move more toward digital currency. It's going to be way easier to track and follow your money and be able to, obviously affect your life, but also they're going to be able to, like, you're not really going to have to worry about inflation anymore because then all they have to do, I would imagine, because they're going to try a UBI. I think that's like one of the big thing that is going to be coming. They're going to try a UBI. And they're going to be able to do it with crypto. So that's going to be one of the first stages. Like we'll give you crypto and for your UBI at first, and then you'll be able.
The end of the world.
It might be the end, or it could be good in the long run. We don't know. I mean, like everyone's really afraid of communism and socialism. Trust me, so am I. I don't like that idea. But as long as it's privatized, like maybe if we had a private bank do some sort of crypto UBI, there might be a better way.
Well,
but I don't know. It's a centralized bank that is really the issue. I think.
I don't see like how giving people money for nothing in exchange.
No, I'm saying to balance out what's happening. Like there might be what people are going to say. I don't know. I'm just spitballing, but I'm like, if people can't live, what's going to happen? People are going to lose their fucking minds.
Yeah. I think if they
so they're going to try to find a way to help,
I think if they do something, I mean, they might do that. I can definitely see them trying to do that. I just think what that would do would just like postpone the inevitable. Because I just think like if you hand out fairly large amount of money, so if you give every adult in America $1,000 a month, that's going to be what? So 200 million. So say that you end up giving 2 billion.
It's like ridiculous.
2 trillion.
I don't even know.
So
it's a lot.
Why is my math so bad? 200 million plus 3 zeros, 200 billion. So 200 billion a month is going to be 2 trillion plus a year. So 2.6 trillion, 2.4 trillion a year. That's the whole UK like GDP economy every year.
Yeah, well, that's the interesting thing though, is that that's why they're going to move it to a different type of currency. You'll be getting it in US dollar, but it will be a different currency. It's kind of like, imagine if they mint a new gold standard.
I get what you're saying.
And then they'll have it backed by.
I guess that's the idea of it.
Yeah, well, I think the idea is this could work, I think, in a way. Not the UBI stuff, but you used to have a gold standard,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, crypto could be the new gold standard. You would have a crypto standard that would back your money supply.
Mm.
Like that might be a way to
Yeah,
help
maybe.
fix what's going on. I
If
mean,
it's a good
it's
enough crypto.
if it is good enough crypto, but the thing is, the governments control our currencies,
Mm.
right? Like in some way, they have a great effect. I mean, the Federal Reserve is a centralized bank that is interesting to say the least, but there's nothing backing anything that they do. Any decision they done is all algorithms and whatever. The stock market is like heavily involved, and
Mm.
how can our economy be tied so heavily to the stock market? That is also something that really I've always interested me. I'm like,
Mm.
how can our economy be tied so heavily to corporations? I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, that seems dangerous. It doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. I don't know
Yeah.
how else you would do it.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, well, I just think as soon as people started messing around with finance, like I understand it's a way of growing like money sometimes, but I just think it seems incredibly risky, and it's shown to be that way. And I mean, I don't like the fact, and I know most people don't, but it's like all of the really elite people. So like I've heard this about Nancy Pelosi that and you probably heard this as well, that there's a group of traders on Reddit
Yeah.
that basically follow everything Nancy Pelosi does, and they always end up making money. And you just know that it's exactly the same as these people I was reading about back from Russian history. All of the nobles essentially would do the same thing, and they would just end up making a load of money from the working class, and they would just go around dancing and drinking and whatever else they wanted to do while everybody else was supplying them with money, and it was all because it was who you know, not what you know. So they would, well, I suppose not, yeah, kind of, but they would just tell each other what the best thing to import is, and they would share information with each other, and it's like the club. What was it? Carlin used to say, the comedian, like it's a big club and you're not in it or something. It's a very exclusive club and you're not in it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's just how it seems to me. And yeah, man, like I think that has to. I don't know. You'd like to think that has come to an end at some point, but then, as you and I both know from reading this sort of stuff, it's been going on for centuries.
Well,
The
I think
difference
it's
now is information.
that the wealthy is always going to take advantage of the poor. I don't think that's ever anyone with power is going to try to maintain that power, maintain their wealth, whatever. Um, if birds, let's say like doves, were the most valuable thing on earth, wealthy people would hoard it. Like that's just
Mm,
what will happen. Whatever thing it is, they're going to find a way to get it. And I think what the information warfare that we're having right now is that people can now track what you do very easily. It's just as easy for us to track what they do as it is for them to track us.
mm,
So like this, like that, creating that thing. Like I think it was a guy that was following Nancy Pelosi's portfolio and all tracking all her stuff. When stuff like connecting all this stuff, he got subpoenaed by the government to stop talking about it,
yeah,
and he told them to go fuck themselves. And you're like, respect that, right? And but to think that you're not allowed to talk about what finances of a rich person, go screw yourself, dude.
mm,
Everybody knows that if you're out there talking, like if they can look at my finances, I should be able to look at yours. If
yeah,
you want transparency, if you want to do it like this, we're going to come for you and we're going to
mm,
take everything you have. And I think that's what people are starting to realize. Play by their game. Stop having principles when it comes like, okay, Nancy Pelosi, you want to make 40 million? I'm going to make 50 thousand
mm,
dollars this year going off of your trades. I'm going to put that out in the public and let
yeah,
people make their own decisions what they think about that. And
yeah,
then, it's like those small investors with like GameStop. They saw the game. They were shorting GameStop on purpose and driving down the price to hurt it. And they said,
mm,
screw you. And they went after him. And they kind of won
mm,
in a weird way. AMC and GameStop, I'm not saying it saved them entirely, but it gave them a lot more capital, it gave them a lot more playing, room to grow it and do what they got to do, because small investors were like, hey, man, fuck that. We're just going to throw our money at this and say, fuck it. Like, that's
mm,
literally what they did. And
yeah,
that is a part of a peaceful protest. but I guarantee you that was equivalent to a guy gluing his face to right? Like they were like these billionaires were like, bro, come on, you're messing with us, and they're like, stop being a nuisance. But that's what it's about, and I kind of respect it. So I think the way that we're gonna win is by information, is by creating parallel institutions and controlling those parallel institutions. Stop sending your kids to college. Stop sending your kids to the public schools where they get indoctrinated to be racist. Like get together with everyone in your community. Like we will start our own private school. We're going to do it.
Yeah.
With or with permission of the government. We're going to hire a couple teachers. We're going to do what we got to do. But like that is how they don't want you to do that, because that means, in America, there's a big movement of the funding for your kid goes to any school where they go. So it follows the student, and that really sucks for the public institution, because people don't want to send their kids there anymore. They want to send them to a private school. So now private schools are exploding, and and then like even collective pods of parents are coming together and like hiring teachers. Like this is all that decentralization of power. So like one of the biggest key aspects is the economy centralized, the power grid they're trying to centralize, and the formation of our elections. They want to be decentralized, and especially here in the West, in the United States. So if we can prevent those things from happening, we're probably going to be okay. But the economy situation can only, I think, be fixed through decentralization. I don't think it can be fixed through more inflation, more centralized power.
I agree.
More, because this is just leading us down the same path we've been going since 1914 in America. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I agree. Hey, listen, man, there was one thing I was going to talk about tonight that we have not yet, and that is the Kyle Rittenhouse case.
Yep. It's going on right now, the trial.
Yeah, so it started today?
Yeah, they did jury selection yesterday. But I'm not feeling very confident at this moment, because Robert Barnes, if you go check out go to Viva Frei, VIVAFREI is his channel. But him and Robert Barnes are both lawyers. Viva is from Canada. Robert Barnes is a constitutional lawyer in the United States, one of the best. And he started his show last night saying like Rittenhouse is getting fucked. Like financially, like there's a lot of crazy shit going on. He's raised like over $600,000 for him, and like it was supposed to go to the mother to be the controller of it, but she's not. There's like legal disputes going on, and then the guys running his case have like never won a court case in a jury trial. Like one of them is like a liberal Democrat.
Robert Barnes was representing. I thought he was going to represent him.
Got pushed out after he raised all the money. They pushed him out.
Jesus.
He had all the best experts and all the, like, he said that they botched the jury selection so bad. I'm pretty worried. I think that there's a really good chance that it's going to be fine, but he's like, I'm even more worried because he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting all these experts, like behavioral analysis, to like look at jurors when they're asking questions and break down, go to their Facebook and like do all this work, and they didn't use it. So like you're sitting there going, jury selection is probably one of the most important parts of the process in a jury trial. If they would have went to bench trial, I think this would have already been thrown out. Honestly, like this would have already been done, but they went to jury. So because this particular judge has actually been pretty chill. He's actually been kind of. He's like, no, they were not victims. Like, you're not fucking saying that shit. Like, stuff like that, like, does lean in favor. But the media there has completely isolated that community and told them all the lies about Kyle Rittenhouse, the local media, so that infects Facebook algorithms, and all that stuff has really been misled. It could not be good for Kyle Rittenhouse. And somebody said that, no, I don't care. One of the jury that I don't think they selected her, obviously, but she said, no, he's guilty regardless.
Jesus.
Because he used an AR-15.
Oh, no.
I think they should
Are you
ban.
Serious?
Yeah, it was one of them. Another one was the guy said, I don't think I could be fair in this trial because I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. And he's like, I don't think I could be objective. And the guy's like, if the judge says to him, so if you were given new information, you would never change your mind. He's like, no, never. So like, you're getting really, like, it's really weird. It's a really weird to see where this goes. Right now, his friend just took the stand, Kyle Rittenhouse's friend, and he pointed at like the rifle and said, like, "Yep, that's the gun that was used that night or whatever." So that's pretty much the only update we have. I mean, it's gonna be tough. I don't think this is gonna be cut and dry.
So for anybody that hasn't heard about it, can you just like say
Kyle
what
Ritten,
happened?
Jacob Blake.
Kenosha, wasn't it?
Yeah, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Jacob Blake sexually assaulted his ex-wife or ex-partner, and then tried to steal her car with her kids in the back seat. And he had a knife in his hand, which he admitted to Michael Strahan, actually, and who is a famous football player, American football player. But he got shot 7 times in the back. You know, media ran with it. Oh my God, monster, monster, monster.
Because he was reaching into the car for the knife, wasn't it? That's why he got shot in the back.
No, he had it in his hand. No,
really? So why did he get shot in the back?
Because he was getting in a car with kids in the back.
He was getting in the car with the gun.
He was trying to get in. And like, there's kids in the back. There's chaos. He had a knife. And the guy could have thought, well, this is because he was so close. Listen, it's a chaos situation. So, you know, at that point, Jacob Blake, if he didn't, you know, comply, which, you know, I don't like police all that much, but still, you know, you have the system right now. You got to try to use it to the best of your ability. This kicked off a big firestorm. It was like George Floyd 2.0. Like, this is like, oh my God. And it all ended up being the narrative because completely fallen apart. But there was all these rioters were coming to Kenosha, Wisconsin, Antifa from Seattle, Portland. All these people were kind of honing in.
Busting in, weren't they?
Busting in. Yeah, I think one of them was called there was a certain name for one of the vehicles.
The
it
riot.
Was something. The riot. It rhymed. I know it rhymed. Like, it was some rhyme to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, they had. So anyway, so Kyle Rittenhouse was out there defending his community because all the police were surrounding their courthouse and their little mayor's building or whatever. So they were out protecting their community. He tried to put out a fire that they lit a garbage can on fire. He tried to put it out. They chased him. Rosenbaum was the first guy who ended up being a pedophile, mind you.
They were trying to roll it into a gas station.
Yeah, they were trying to roll it to a gas station to put it on fire and blow up a gas station. So he ran. He was running from this guy, Rosenbaum. He was chasing him, throwing like a bag at him or something. Gunshot goes off. Rosenbaum turns around. Rittenhouse turns around. Guy is right there. He heard a gunshot. He shot him. And
he'd also Rosenbaum had thrown something at Kyle.
Yeah, it was like a bag or like a bottle or something.
Yeah.
But still.
And the gunshot at the same time.
And then there was the gunshot, turned around, guy grabs his gun.
Yeah.
Right there is the right of self-defense. They're trying to take a deadly weapon from you. You have the right to shoot them. So
can you just describe this gentleman, Rosenbaum? Is he a nice chap or?
He definitely not a nice chap. He was screaming racial epithets. I can't say the word.
Epithets.
Thank you. Epithets. Screaming them at him, and he was going at him and saying, "You want to fuck kill me? You fuck a big man with your gun." And he was being antagonistic. There's no doubt he was being antagonistic, and it was a very hyper situation. And all they were doing was
criminal record.
Yeah, he was a pedophile. He had at least been convicted of being a pedophile, you know. And long story short, so that he shoots him. Kyle Rittenhouse gets on the phone. He's calling his friend, like, "What do I do?" He might even provide first aid. But then people's like, "Hey," everyone started yelling at him. So he's like, "I gotta go." So he took off running. Guy comes up, pushes him.
He was running to the police as well, wasn't
he? He was running to the
police in the video.
Let's go watch the video. There is you can go watch all the Kyle Rittenhouse tape, everything. It's all out there. And one guy, I think he's running, and I think someone maybe pushes him and he trips or something to that effect.
He hit him with a skateboard.
Yeah, I thought the guy came up with a skateboard after. I don't think, as far as I remember. Regardless, I just remember him falling, however he fell, and then he turned around, and to Kyle's credit, it is a really big thing he did that day, the poise and control. He only shot at people that were posing a threat to him. He fell down. Can you
hear that?
No, can't hear anything.
Oh.
and then a skateboard came down. I was coming down on his head, blasted the guy in the chest. And then another gentleman was running up with a handgun. with a handgun in his hand, running up to Kyle Rittenhouse, who's on the ground, can't retreat, blasts him in the bicep. I ended up killing 2, shooting 3. Honestly, like, you just sit there and just go, listen, the guy only shot the people that posed an immediate threat to his life. This is clear-cut self-defense. He should have never been charged. Everybody knows it. This is political. Should have never been charged. Maybe charged for a gun crime, possibly. You could argue like maybe there's some menial, but they say should get charged with murder. No, it was obvious self-defense. It was the most clear-cut self-defense I've ever heard. What's going on out there?
I don't know, man. It's just these bangs. I don't know. It'll be fireworks, won't it? Sounds like gunshots, but it's not gunshots here.
Definitely.
That's the one thing I do know. But yeah, and then I believe Alec Baldwin said he should be in jail for the rest of his life.
Yeah, all these people that, all of the, it's kind of like the Nicholas Sand. I think if he wins this case, he's going to have a big lawsuit like Nicholas Sandman. Those are the Covington boys, the Catholic kids that were out, and the Native American guy banging a drum. It all ended up being bullshit. I think they're going to have a really good legal case for libel. People were lying like blatantly. So defamation, they were defaming the kid, calling him a white supremacist, like all this stuff. And it was all done by the prosecution, planting these stories in the press, and they're just not good people, man. That's what I know. I don't think a lot of these people are good that are trying.
I agree. I think I would say prosecution lawyers, but I actually just think lawyers on both sides, no offense, lawyers, but like I just think generally those types of lawyers are not good people, because essentially, like those people's jobs are to put people away, regardless of actual guilt or innocence, for money. They're like, if we pay you £300,000, can you get this innocent paedophile off? And they're like, yeah. Or if we give you £300,000, can you prosecute this innocent kid and ruin the rest of his life? And they're like, yep. And then they'll go and put their head down on the pillow and get a good night's sleep. And I know that these things are needed in our kind of justice, but dude, it just seems really, really wrong. I mean,
I think the thing I can say is this is what happens with a machine that is political in nature. The courts are not supposed to be political. They're not supposed
no, absolutely not.
But it happens. There's a reason why you pick liberal judges and conservative judges. Like that in itself should be illegal. Like that in itself. It's the Constitution. Can you fucking read? Like, we have made our laws and everything so complicated that you need to have an expert. It's pretty simple. The Second Amendment shall not be infringed. That's the end of it. That's the end of the discussion. Your right to freedom of speech. It's simple. Freedom of assembly. These are not complicated, nuanced terms.
Have you, I don't know if you've been hearing about the Julius Jones situation.
Julius Jones. Is that the guy that got granted clemency recently or something? I don't know.
Well, it's the guy that I don't know if he did. I think it was the other night. Like so basically it was 1999. There was a dad coming back from getting his daughter's school supplies with his sister. They were in a GMC Suburban, Chevy Suburban, I don't know. And apparently at the time, these were like one of the most sought after cars by car thieves. Basically, this dude runs up as they get home, runs up to the car, doesn't say a word. This is what all of the witnesses said. Doesn't say a word. And as the dad gets to get out of the door, he literally opens the door. They see this dude walk up to the side of the car. He sticks the gun in the door and shoots the dad in the head. The daughter, who was like 7 or 8 at the time, says she could every night. I don't know if this is just to make him not get released, but she said every night she can just picture her dad's head just flopping to the right, like as he was shot dead. He was wearing a bandana over his mouth, but they could all see his eyes, and he was wearing a stocking cap. They could see his eyes, his ears, because he had the stocking cap like with his ears hanging out rather than over the ears. and they could see his sideburns and stuff. And they basically all said, yeah, look, this is definitely him. At the time, they tested a bandana in his house, in Julius Jones's house, which is where they actually found the murder weapon. Both the murder weapon and the bandana had his DNA on them. The people that Kardashian is now trying to say did it, uh, everyone's asking for them to DNA test it. They DNA tested it, and there was no DNA at the time. This guy, Chris Jordan, none of his DNA was on it. It was all Julius Jones' DNA. But because it's kind of got traction in the media and it's earning people money, now everyone's suddenly saying he's innocent and he needs to be released. And it's like, dude, I've heard so many different lawyers say that this case is just a slam dunk guilty as fuck case. But because Kim Kardashian's in on it and the Innocence Project, which is just a hilarious term. But yeah, and I don't know if he was released or not, man. Like
Well,
the
there
last
might
thing
be
I heard.
more. There might be more to that. I don't know.
Let me just see if.
I know the Innocence Project guys. I mean, if they're trying to get people released, you would think that they would have like they don't just take on anybody. They must have a good like there must be something. Because to think that people haven't been
They absolutely have, but recently there's been a lot of very, very guilty people that have been getting let off by the Innocence Project.
Well, I don't know if they're getting let off, but maybe they just don't want people to die. Like maybe there is like a part of that, like
okay, but like people that have murdered people's family and they're trying to get them out of jail and a book deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I don't. But like, what evidence are they offering up to the contrary? That's like part of like what are they actually? That's what I would like to know.
Yeah, nothing.
I have no idea. I didn't know about this. I've heard somewhat about it.
This is fucking hilarious, man. Like the first, so as someone that has taken a keen interest in the Julius Jones case, I can tell you he is guilty as shit. It is beyond like any rational human being's ability to find this dude anything other than guilty as sin, and he's blaming his friends. And the first thing when you look it up is death row inmate Julius Jones is a perfect example of Oklahoma's broken justice system. Oklahoma Parole Board votes to grant clemency for death. Oh my God, man.
Yeah, for death. Just for death, though.
Okay, so he's not getting let out on a book deal.
Yeah, they commuted his sentence for death, which I think is the right thing to do. I don't think I don't like the fact that we just kill people. Because like I think it was
don't like the fact that he killed someone. Did you say? I had to turn you down because of these things.
No, I was saying I don't like the fact of that the state kills people. I don't like.
Oh, okay.
I don't like just killing people because someone could be innocent, and I just don't want to take that risk. But there's the like the Oklahoma just got botched their last 3. Like they really did. Like these things take 45 minutes to an hour to die, and they're like throwing up, they're convulsing, and it's not very. I mean, we got to be humane. Yeah, I think.
I agree with that. Listen, man, I agree with that.
Like we need to keep humanity. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. I mean, yeah, I kind of feel. Listen, like I live in a country where there's no, there is no murder, there is no death sentence, obviously, but. I everybody in here, over here at least, always says, well, if it was a really bad crime, then yeah, like I would be pro death penalty, but there is a risk of getting the wrong person, and sometimes the crimes they get given the death penalty for are not really sufficient. But I don't know, man. I feel like walking up to a car and blasting a pair of little girls' dad to death in front of them, and then shooting at those little girls as they run for cover.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that kind of deserves a death penalty, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean,
no, I'm not debating your.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like if there's, it goes down to like, well, who's like this is the problem with like the ACLU and the ADL and maybe even the
This is also corrupt now, man.
Well, they get millions of dollars because they do a really good thing. They get some guy out of jail. Like they do, like the ACLU used to be like defend white supremacists. Like they used to defend them.
Freedom of speech and
white supremacists, which is kind of not at all like why don't they should cancel them fucking selves. I mean, if anything, but they are not serious. The people that are out there and say, I will defend you if you're a black supremacist, a white supremacist, if you're a nationalist, if you're a murderer, if you're a pedophile, everyone deserves their time in court. Everyone deserves to, obviously there are things that are just obviously beyond, killing this dad and like all this stuff. If we can't, like, okay, about the death penalty, why do they wait 10 years?
I agree.
Like, why do they wait then? Like, the question is, why do they wait?
I think the reason they do that is to give people a chance. So this guy has had
For
13
appeals and stuff.
This guy's had 13 different appeals with 13 different putting things forward. Maybe this will help. Oh, I just found my cousin and he said I was at his house. Oh, I just found my other sister's friend and she said I was at her house. One of these has to work. So they kind of give them a chance. But I agree. Like, I feel like making somebody sit there for that long is just torture, as well as I feel like it's cruel and unusual punishment to make someone wait so long for their death. But maybe they want to do that.
I don't know. I mean, like, if you back in the day, they were like, you got caught raping somebody, they just hung you.
Yeah.
Like, that was it. Probably a greater deterrence, and it wasn't a drain on society, right? Maybe there's a point to the death penalty. I don't know. I just don't like the fact that there are people who are, the state has used the death penalty to be able to do some pretty awful shit. Like they can. It's a threat. It's a threat of death. It's not be a better person or something. Like, I mean, I get it. I understand. Like, if someone killed my mom, like, I would want them to die.
Yeah.
But if anybody should be able to do it, it should be the family member, not the state.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Unless obviously they're like, well, I don't have it in me to kill someone, so I need you.
And they get to live. Yeah, they get to live then. Like, maybe that's the way it should be. I don't know.
But why can't they just ask somebody else to do it that doesn't care? Why don't they just say, I'd like a paid executioner to do it?
I don't know. Because at the end of the day, their life should be in your hands. I think maybe there's a compromise there.
But the only reason I disagree with that fairly strongly is because if you've got a 9-year-old girl and you're like, you need to kill this 23-year-old
No, I mean, like, maybe when she
justice.
turns 18 or something, like 18.
Okay, so then
19,
we are making them wait 10 years.
Yeah, maybe. Like, okay, we got to wait a certain amount of time. You can get the people to think on it. I don't know. I have no idea, but I didn't think that's when she start talking like that's why I'm pro-life. Like, I don't agree with killing people, period. Like, I don't like killing people. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Being non-aggressive towards your fellow man should not be controversial.
But don't you think you give that up when you kill someone? Like when you murder someone, not kill someone, but when you murder someone.
No, yeah, you have the right to be. I think there's an argument there, but once the situation has been resolved, and that is no longer a person of violence in that moment, I mean, I don't know how you could argue killing them is legal or justifiable. I think it gets like way too complicated to sit there and say, like, just because somebody was arrested by the state, they were convicted in a jury trial, all that stuff, that they now have no right to exist. I don't know if that's something I want the power of my state to have.
But yeah, and listen, I know that for you it's about the state, but for me, regardless whether it's the state or anybody else, like just taking the state out of it for a minute, I used to be like really anti-death penalty, but like as I've got older and I've seen like what certain crimes can do to families and stuff, I don't know, man. I feel like, if you've got somebody that's killed, like let's say you've got a gangbanger that's killed several people this way to steal $3,000 worth of car.
Yeah. Yeah.
At some point you have to take that guy out. And if you couldn't get there, like as he's killing someone, then I have nothing against people doing that at a later date.
What I'm not arguing that people shouldn't feel a certain way about it, but it's the same thing with the gun argument. The death penalty is a tool. The gun is a tool. It's about how you apply it, right? I think when people say guys who were like Second Amendment guys and then their kid gets shot in a elementary school by a mass shooter or a high school, I understand what they're saying. Like, I get why they feel the way they do about guns, but go fuck yourself. That may be like you're not going to come take my guns because some asshole decided that they're going to go hurt your kid. Like, that's not the same thing. And I'm not trying to equate the two to being exactly the same, but I can understand someone who could be pro pro death penalty because of like something happened in their family, I can understand it. I can get it. Like I understand that and I can empathize with it. But I just sit there and go like, we don't do things because of the way people feel. We don't do that. That's a dangerous place to go.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not about feelings. To me, if you have somebody that keeps killing people to steal a $3,000 car, you need to stop the person. If you don't want to pay for them to live in jail for the next 60 years, and they've already taken people's lives, I don't see anything wrong with taking their life to stop that.
I mean, I understand that argument. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, well,
okay, well, that's all
is he a cattle? Is he a person? Does he lose his humanity the moment he kills somebody because of whatever reason?
Yeah.
Man, there you go. And then they're not people. But I'm just saying that's a dangerous path because that's exactly what the Nazis did to the Jews. And that's exactly
that's not what the Nazis did to the Jews at all.
It is exactly what the Nazis did to the
No,
Jews.
it's not. They were killing innocent people. They weren't killing serial killers.
You would know how the propaganda worked. And the propaganda was saying that they were the
but
cause.
You're saying it's the same thing as putting a murderer to death is exactly the same thing as what the Nazis did.
Yes.
That might have been one of the things they did, but I don't know what you're comparing. They killed
innocent people, but you get to determine their innocence.
I'm not talking about killing innocent people.
But you are talking about because like if you talk about the transformative justice, right? This is what the lefty talks about. Is that like you can kill a person, be an evil bastard, do horrible things, but when it comes down to you don't know what's in their heart before you kill them, and you don't know to determine what that person is at that stage when you kill them. Now in the moment, I'm all about it. Like you got to defend your property, defend your life, defend others. Yeah. That's not the argument. Once they're no longer that situation and they're in jail, they're cattle.
Yeah.
They're not people. They're cattle and to the slaughter. Well, and it's like, and it's the same kind of mindset that led to Jews. It's acceptable that Jews aren't people. They're vermin. They're scum. And what I'm talking about is the psychological
process.
I'm sorry
you feel that way, Dan. But
right? But like it's the Russians, dude. How did the Russians, when they were invading in Poland and Germany, crucify women to barn doors for no reason, and then use them as target practice? What gets to that point? And what I'm saying is because they didn't value them as a human. Like they're fucking monsters. There's monsters out there. There's bad guys. But when we fall to the level of equating, when we say, you did an awful thing, you took somebody's life, and now we get to just take yours, because then we're just as evil, just as monstrous as the person doing it, but we feel justified in doing it because we went through a process.
I do. Listen, I see what you're saying. I
don't want to argue about it. I'm just saying, like, that's
no. I know. Listen, I respect what you're saying, and I see your point. I don't think you could really compare it in totality with what the Nazis did, but
I mean, it depends on the guy being killed. If you're the guy being killed, you probably feel like a little different about it. Maybe. And what happens if they change the law to where if you own a gas car, we're going to kill you? Hyperbolic, obviously, ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem with laws, isn't it? Like, But yeah, like I don't know, man. Like I just think that if you have already killed people, then that kind of makes it different. Like if you've already murdered 3 people.
What about in war?
So but exactly, that's what I'm saying. There's a difference. You have to define the difference between killing and murder.
How about just not kill people? Like that's just not kill people. Just don't do it. Just don't kill people.
Exactly.
And then if they do, and you catch you catch them, you go through your whatever. It's like, why kill them too? Why? What does more murder, more death get us? It doesn't get us anything.
So just say that again, because I was struggling halfway through.
Like if you're, like, we need to stop killing people, and because somebody does an act that is evil, doesn't mean that we should do evil upon them. This is not some this is not Rome in like the 5th century, like where we like eye for an eye or whatever. We just start executing people. Like that's not what we should be striving for. Like I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like you don't do evil or have someone do evil and do evil upon them as like retribution. Like I don't think that's smart. I don't think that's where we should be heading as a society, personally.
Listen,
I might feel different if someone killed my kid. Like, you know what I'm saying? I might feel different later in life. I'm sure I would.
But
and that's where I'm saying.
we have to be able to look at this from a neutral point of view.
Just saying, because I guess that's how you get to where the Jews were. Like, that's how you get to, like, that's what the Germans started out, like, you don't need property rights, okay? Like, we're going to make you
But I
wear a
don't know how
star.
we're going from... I genuinely, by the way, I'm not saying this to be
Yeah,
provocative, which I know I said in the past. I'm struggling to find, like, where we're getting to the Jews. So just as if you're speaking to a
it's the
complete...
dehumanization part, where we
Okay.
dehumanize a certain part of
But
our
the Jews
society.
were innocent, is that correct?
Yeah,
A
they were
genuine question.
obviously
Okay.
the Jews were
So
innocent.
a murderer is guilty of murdering people's
No, no,
families.
no, 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 because you're talking they're guilty of murder in the
Yeah.
system, but you don't know
Okay.
what's in their heart. And like what I'm saying, later in life, if you wait 10 years,
Yeah.
and then they're a changed person, they're not the same person most likely that still committed that
Oh,
crime.
yeah. I 100%
So like,
agree with that.
like, and if that's why in the moment it's acceptable to kill someone. It's
Yeah.
still murder. If I see a dude trying to murder someone and I shoot them, I still murdered them. It's just it's legally it's not murder, but I took a life.
Yeah, because
And
I mean, you're killing, like murder, I guess, is a legal term, but
it's
it's a deep one, man. Because
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, I was like, it is deep. Trust me, I don't like the Nazis. What I'm saying is, don't be like a Nazi. Don't be a Nazi. That's
I
all.
do try not to be like
Yeah,
Nazis.
me too. That's all. That's all I'm striving for. I want to you can be a monster, but you're still a human. And at the end of the day, I think maybe even the psychological torture, maybe it's worse. Maybe it's worse living with
Maybe. I
something.
mean, do you know what? Like, as somebody that has known people in jail for a long period of time,
It's probably not fun.
it's sad to say that most of these people don't really change. Actually, I'm not going to say most. A lot of these people do not change.
And is our systems really set up for reform? There's arguments.
Yeah, it's not. It's
I
not.
I think like in Sweden, like they do it differently, but everywhere does it a little bit different. And I think we
It's
should take.
Norway. Yeah, it's Norway. Yeah.
Yeah, they have like villages where people live
Yeah.
basically.
They put them out onto these like remote islands, and they
Yeah.
actually let murderers have access to meat cleavers and stuff because they make them into chefs. They give them like a life skill and shit.
That's what I'm saying.
Crazy.
So to be a murderer, maybe you're on meth and you were crazy and you did and you fucking murdered somebody. You're like, who knows, like what the deepness of this person's soul. Because what we do is through the institutions, we have taken out the human element and said, what is the thing that drives people? The left gets some things right about like humanity. Like we should care about our climate. There is is it to the degree that they say it is? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think
So what would you do?
When it comes to murder, death penalty?
Like if you had somebody that's, let's say someone's killed, they're a gangbanger. They don't have to be a gangbanger. They killed 3 people at separate occasions in 1 year. No drugs involved. They just wanted to steal cars.
You let them go after the first one? Is that what you're saying? Like
No. I'm just saying. So say you catch somebody and you find out.
Yeah,
because you have the ability to find out that they've killed 3 people the previous year, and excuse me, their reason for killing them each time was just to be able to steal the car without them putting up a fight. So that's why they didn't say, give me the car. They just shot them. What would you do with them in terms of, would you punish them? Would you punish them by locking them away?
Well, I think punishing them is locking them away. I think there's an argument for, and then again, is that humane, right? Locking people
Well, that's
up.
what I'm saying.
What is more humane? The death penalty? What would
Exactly.
you feel if you were innocent? What would you want? Let's say you
It
were.
depends if you have kids. If I don't have kids, just kill me. If I have kids, then
even if you're innocent,
and if I'm not going to get out, then kill me. If I am innocent, then I'd like to live for a while to. Sorry.
If you're not, if you were like actually guilty of it, like you knew it.
Yeah, like if I'd done it, just I'd rather just get it over and done with. I don't want to sit there. But then I know that people, once they get in there, they kind of adjust to this new way of life. Humans are very good at adapting. Excuse me, and they basically just start their new life under very different circumstances, but they still value their life. And that's something maybe we do have to take into account. But it's such a difficult one because at the very beginning of this whole debate, not that we said it, but the beginning of this debate is the fact that for many religious people, thou shalt not kill. Now, is that thou shalt not murder, or is it thou shalt not kill at all?
Well, I mean, if you St. Thomas Aquinas and like the Summa Theologica, you talk about like thou shalt not kill is obviously thou shalt not murder. Like thou shalt not go and try to take someone else's life, right? I mean, I think it's pretty logical. It's but as why more? I understand the concept of like we keep allowing ourselves to fall for the same trick over and over again as like humans. And maybe we never will get out of it. Like, hey, you're fucking from Afghanistan and you look like a terrorist. I'm gonna fucking shoot you.
Whoa, where did that come from?
Well, that's what do you think happens?
Oh, you mean in war?
It's not war.
Oh, dude, you're confusing me with different. Are we talking about walking down the street and seeing an Afghani?
I'm saying like that is. What do you think guys did over there? You know how many innocent people?
So we are talking about at war. At least we have to use some language at some point, because otherwise I'm just confused.
Yeah, sure, war. But like, there are people who got killed that were innocent over there.
Yeah, of course, man.
Like maybe that guy was in his mind, he's like, oh my God, I didn't know that was just a sheep farmer or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Should that guy be locked up in jail for what he did? Because that's a war crime. He killed an innocent, person, a non-combatant. And then people would say, well, okay, we just bombed 7 kids in the Middle East before we left Kabul. Well, and no one's going to get charged. No one's going to get in trouble. There's no real consequences. But if you're some dirty, blah, 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 crappy piece of shit, gangbanging guy and whatever, and you kill a dad, you're a monster now. And that's what I'm saying. We don't even like look at do you know who should be put on death row if we want to like use the death penalty? Like everybody that just like ordered that attack on that family and that killed all those kids in Kabul. Why aren't they put on death row?
I don't know.
But it's like because they don't want to. They don't really have anything about accountability. Now, this particular guy, he seems like a real piece of shit. But what is murdering him going to accomplish?
Stopping murdering other people.
He's not going to murder anybody. Obviously, he's been in jail for a long time. He's locked up.
I don't think you can guarantee that. We've had people that have done it the day they got out.
You can't guarantee me that you're not going to kill someone someday.
Well, yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about releasing someone that's already in jail for murder to prevent them murdering other people.
Crime at that point. I'm just saying, not predicting crime. You can't predict crime. Just because you've been convicted of a crime doesn't mean you'll commit that crime again necessarily. You can't say that like now. There's patterns. There's people that like this guy has a high chance, high probability, but some people commit a crime and they never do it again.
Yeah, I see your point.
I don't like to predict crime.
It just seems so hard, man, like to let someone get away with something that fucking horrendous.
But they're not getting away with it. They're going to die in prison. They're going to die alone. They can't have kids. They can't have families. They don't get to live a full life. There is a punishment there that is eternal.
Yeah, I mean, there is.
Like there is something like the only butt stuff you're going to be able to do in there is with George, down the hall, maybe in an hour break. Like, I'm not saying that's like, I want a life. I don't want to live that life. And maybe that guy ends up loving that life. But there needs to be some idea. I think when we talk about murder, when we talk about killing and taking a life, it needs to be way more than just like, this guy's got to be a threat to everything and anyone around him. And like, I think that's really hard. It's like killing old people because they're old. Like, I don't think that's right, but people advocate for it. They're like, you don't need to live past 70. You should be just euthanized like a dog. I'm not that person.
Actually.
Well, you and I will.
I'm joking.
But like that's where we're headed, and it's that type of mentality that will keep us.
I think we are headed there. Do you know what? I genuinely think that China will do that. I said it here first.
I agree. No, because dude, now they have so many old people, they can't take care of them because there's no young people.
That's my point.
They're gonna do it.
When you're charged with looking after fucking 500 million old people, and you don't have enough people in the system, because I think they say you need like 3 working people to pay the taxes on average to look after one average old person, which is why, and many people might not like this, but that's why so many Western countries need immigration, and I know that pisses people off.
I'm not like completely against all of it, but
yeah. So like, I think that China, I would not be surprised if you see something come in, especially when they're
doing it right now. Mark, I bet they're doing it right now. They're just not talking about it. You go into a hospital and they just start, a little, and they just die. Like, I guarantee this happening. They do it here too, all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, there is bad mama jammas in our systems that do not care about old people. They live miserable existences. They constantly siphon money from them by overcharging for their shit that they didn't need.
Oh yeah.
Like
Indeed.
it's a racket, and they're literally like people. These people are getting screwed out of everything that they have, and they're just not viewed as people. Like
Yeah.
my mother took in my step grandmother. She got really sick, and then they took her in. They let her have the whole downstairs, and she instantly improved by having just someone around. She's got a nurse that comes checks her once a week. It's like that's great. Like that's what
Yeah.
families should do instead of throwing old people to the wolves. You
Oh,
know?
dude, we treat our old people like fucking shit. Like, and I'm just as like, oh mate, like I watched one of those fucking annoying like TikTok shorts or whatever that comes up on YouTube that you wish you could turn off, but you end up going
Yeah.
through 40 of them before you turn it
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And there was this guy saying like, how old's your mother? And he was like 72. And he was like, okay, average age of a woman in America is 78. So let's say that you get really lucky and your mum lives to average age. 6 more years, how many times do you see her a year? And he's like, at the moment, twice, because she lives in another state. And he goes, okay, so instead of viewing it as you've got another 6 years, look at it as you've got another 12 times that you're going to see your mum before she dies. Will you ring her more? And he was like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
And, I feel like a lot of people don't see and visit their old people because, oh, I'm too tired. I've been working all day. I just don't have the time. I've got to take my kid to football, and then I've got to make the roast dinner. Well, that's a big English thing, but yeah, like, and I'm just not gonna have the time. And dude, it's so sad because what people should be looking at from it is their point of view, and that I guess goes back to the whole murder thing and the capital punishment thing. Is yeah, I mean, I guess like however much it hurts in that situation, but you still have to, I suppose, look at it from everyone's viewpoint. And certainly in this one, like with old people, I don't think people spend enough time just stopping and thinking what it must be like to be,
Dude.
knowing that you're well past your prime, you're a drain, you're slow, you're not really contributing very
Yeah,
much.
and
This
like
is how people
you're
might
losing your
feel.
independence right in front of your eyes. Like everything's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
And I think people need to spend just a little bit more time just thinking like, what must that feel like? And then add to that a lot of these old people, like if they're lucky, might see their kids and their grandkids like 2 or 3 times a year. I actually ended up befriending, like kind of befriending until his money grabbing girlfriend ended up kind of kicking me out of the situation. There's this old dude that lived near here, and he dropped something out of his. He had like those mobile buggies, and he dropped a can of baked beans or something, and I stopped to pick it up, and he started chatting to me, and we chatted for about 10 minutes. I could see he was clearly kind of like physically impaired. He couldn't move very well, but like he was still fairly with it in his head. And I was asking him like, how do you change your bedclothes and stuff, like if you don't mind me asking? And he was like, well, with great difficulty. And I said, but doesn't anyone like send around nurses or anything? Because he said like his family doesn't see him anymore. And I think he had one son, but his son moved to Canada. And he was like, well, they did send one nurse. But then he was like, she said that she didn't like smelling smoke because I think he smokes out the window. So she wouldn't come back. And I went there. I went with him. Like I was walking alongside him while we were talking, and he invited me in, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go in. And so I went inside, dude. Like I've seen like drug dens, and this place was worse than any fucking drug den I've seen. Like every surface had like a 3 millimeter film of like nicotine or just fucking
just
grime.
grime.
His
Yeah,
his bed sheets had piss on them. His dressing gown had shit stained on it. His bathroom had just feces and piss everywhere. So I spent the next 8 weeks going and seeing him every day in the evening, and I cleaned up his whole house, top to bottom.
good for you,
And
man.
I kept speaking to social services and the police, saying, "Listen, this guy is ill as fuck. Like he had 2 or 3 serious things wrong with him, and something really badly wrong with his spine." And I said, like, he cannot take care of himself. He's calling ambulances sometimes to get out of bed. Now he's got my number. He's calling me every day. And dude, like after 3 weeks of trying and getting put onto different people, in the end, I was like, fuck it. Like, these people are so incompetent. Even the main people that are in charge are so incompetent. I may as well just do this fucking stuff myself, like, even if it takes me 10, 15 minutes a day. But then, like, he had this woman who he'd met online he was like 72 or 74, and she was like 39. And she was basically asking him every few days for 200 or 300 quid, and which is like $400, and he would just give it to her because she would say she loved him and blah blah blah. But dude, she's a 39-year-old woman. Like, she's not. And I said, do you know what? As sad as it was, I even said that to him because I could see what she was doing, and I was like, listen, Eddie. Oh, I'm just giving it up. Anyway, fuck it. I was like, listen, Ed, I'm not trying to break your heart, but she's 39. Like, you're 74. She lives an hour away. The reason she comes round is to get the money, and then she fucks off again. And he was like, I know, because it's Scottish. It's like, I know deep down. And then I was like, well, why are you doing it? And he was like, well, it's just a bit of company. Fucking heartbreaking, man. Like, I cleared out his garden. He had like 2 sheds that has exploded because of old age and weather. So went through 2 bursting sheds worth of crap. Like, paid to get it all taken away, and I cleaned up all his old buggies and whatnot. And then he had to go into hospital he had a big fall. And like, I went over there, and the ambulance came over, and they said to me, listen, like, the longer you keep helping him, the more he's going to rely on you, and then that's going to make it very difficult if you don't want to, if you can't carry on. And I was like, I don't mind doing it at the moment. And then when he went into hospital, he asked me if I could bring a couple of things in, which I did. And then about a week later, he told me that the girl had offered to do something. And then she left a note when I was there, basically telling me like not to come round, and that Eddie had told me not to come round. And I think she blocked my number on his phone because when I rang up, every time it would just go straight to answer phone. So it's heartbreaking, man. And
I
he
mean,
still lives there. Still lives like 200 meters away from me.
it's the most fragile. They're like infants. It's like you revert
Yeah.
back. And that's kind of where gotta love people, even the people that do awful things, and the people that, like, we still gotta have love in our hearts, and we gotta try to find a way, like the nuisance of an old man. Um, but he helped build your country. He helped get, he
He
helped,
did. He was in the
like these,
RAF.
you know what I mean? Like, these people really came before us, and we need to respect them and guide them as best as we can into the afterlife. And I just don't think we should be executing them because they're a nuisance, or like, that's just not what I think. Like, well, how do I know this guy won't call me tomorrow and be a problem for me? So I'm just gonna take care of it today. It's like, I just would not want to do that to an old guy or an old
Mm.
woman. And like, I love talking to old people. Old people are like, know what's up. They know bullshit. They go, like think about what point you have to be at to let someone see your house like that.
I know,
Like
dude. That's what
like
my missus said.
you got to
She was like,
be low.
yeah. Because like when I first came back, and listen, like, I'm a smoker. I'm a filthy smoker. I don't smoke a lot, but and like, I don't think I smell of smoke, although all smokers don't think they do. But my missus doesn't smoke, and she says I don't smell. But when I came back from his house, she literally told me to get my clothes off at the front door because she was like, literally, I'd step like a foot in the door, and she was like, "You fucking stink." And it was just because just sitting in his chair just like transferred all this like fur from
Yeah.
his cat and his whiskey and
It's
fucking
mildewy, just dank,
yeah,
like
just
really
this musky
fixed. Yeah.
and
And
cigarettes. He smokes a lot.
God bless him.
But I just feel bad for him, man. I feel really bad. And I feel really bad that like he's paid a shitload into the state. And when I rang this guy, I can't even remember. I really want to call out his name, but I feel like I could get in trouble. But anyway, this guy, like I say, for a social worker or a carer, um, which you are allowed, I think you do get some sort of allowance when you're that age. He
Yeah.
just kept saying like, "Oh yeah, we're on top of it. We're arranging something at the moment." And I never saw anyone go there. Even months and months after I stopped seeing him because of this woman, like there's still no one ever went around there. It's like ridiculous. You can't just leave. Listen, even if you want to be really hot, like ice cold, and be like, look, it's about money. You can't afford to do this with every person. You'll just go bankrupt. Do you know how expensive it is to send an ambulance out? It's something like 700 quid. Like, in all the costs of like the combined maintenance and fuel and the cost of the paramedics. Ryan probably knows better than I do. In this country, it's something like 700 quid. He rings ambulances because he can't physically get out of bed. Like, because his back's so wrecked. But anyway.
Well, I hope the best for him, man. That's all you can
Yeah,
do.
me too. What did you think about Chappelle? What happened with Chappelle?
Chappelle is not a friend of. I think it's bullshit. Like, he should be able to say what he wants. He should do this and that and the other. But Chappelle is not some like savior of free speech to me. Like, I think, people should support him absolutely. But especially with like conservatives, you see how conservatives are trying to like, dude, he doesn't like you. Like, he
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
not.
I know.
He
I
doesn't
just
like
look at him
that.
as a comedian personally.
Yeah,
I
me too. But like, I think people are trying to say that he's like some big defender like of free speech,
no,
and the
he's
right
not
wing
at
needs to
all.
get behind him. I'm like, support his right to say it. I didn't think his last special was like that funny. I thought it was okay.
I didn't either, but I kind of got the impression it wasn't meant to be that funny. But then
Yeah,
maybe it
like
was
him
almost like he was saying, "I'm going."
wrapping. Yeah, like I'm going, but I'm wrapping up this LGBT thing or
Yeah,
whatever. And then at the end of the day, I just go, you know what, Dave kind of, I think, has not been. He's kind of. Sean said this. He goes, he's kind of hit his like I'm no longer doing comedy. I'm kind of like commentary on life, and like I'm like kind of pedestaling a little bit. He's kind of up there, a little bit like preachy. There's a little bit of
yeah,
preachiness going on, and which I do appreciate and like sometimes, but he's not a stand-up comedian anymore. That's not really what he does. He's a commentary. He's a social commentary guy, and
yeah.
he's all into BLM and like the Nation of Islam and all this, and that's fine. You have your
He's
right to
into
do
the
that.
fucking Nation of Islam.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure him
Oh
and
Jesus.
Big Mike or Black Mike, whatever that guy's name is, like
Oh
famous
yeah, yeah, big
gunfight.
one.
But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean I hate him. I have nothing against him, but
No.
he's not for what I believe in,
Mm.
And I'm not, I wouldn't like, I don't think like he's not this great guy. I don't think. What I mean
No,
is,
no, I agree. Yeah,
uh,
I was just looking at him from the point of view of as being like pretty funny when he wants to be comedian.
I love it
Uh,
when he's actually just doing comedy. He's the best.
he's fucking hilarious, like
He's
when
the
he's
best
free
ever.
flying.
Yeah, it's
But
great.
yeah, it did kind of break my heart when he started going full on into because he did, like you say, he did go fairly hard into the whole BLM thing
I mean, the
around.
thing is, I can't blame him. His whole entire community was feeling something, to him, and I don't blame people for having their opinions be swayed by feelings, situations. Like I'm not gonna pigeonhole him. But he was brave enough to speak out on it, his truth. Like I can respect that. I can respect and and it just means that like, hey man, we just don't align that way. Like we don't see eye to eye, and I think that's what we need to get back to in our societies. But you know what, man, you can support BLM. I think you're kind of fucking stupid, but and like I think you should call them out for all the violence that they did. But at the end of the day, it's like unless you're like trying to hurt me or my family or whatever, like I don't know. I don't know. I think there's fatigue. I'm fatigued. I could give two shits what Dave Chappelle says about BLM anymore. I could give two shits what fucking Trump says about like literally anything. I'm done. I don't care. These people like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, I do know exactly what you mean,
you're
and
like,
unfortunately,
Trump's saying this again. Like, who gives a shit? If
yeah,
Trump's like, I think it's fatigue. I'm just
yeah.
burnt out from it, from
I
all of
think
it.
everyone is, man. Like, not everyone, because otherwise you wouldn't be hearing that. But like, I think a lot of people are, and I sometimes wonder if that's what just happens to adults. Like, you go through your period of really caring about trying to change things, and then like you realize that at the end of the day, most people are not willing to talk about things in depth,
I don't
and
even, there's,
the other half are burnt out.
well, no, I mean, I'm burnt out of caring about what people think.
Yeah,
I don't
that's
give a
what I'm
shit what
saying.
Trump thinks. I don't give a shit at all. And like the guy, like, and I don't think a majority of people are stupid. I think a majority of people are just, I'm living my life, man. I just want to live my life. And that's why it's because it only takes a few people to change things. It doesn't
Hmm.
take a lot. It doesn't take a majority all the time. You just got to get the
Uh,
majority to go along with you, you
yeah.
know? But I think when I like, I don't even give a shit anymore what Trump says. Like I said, like, and I was a pretty big Trump supporter, but I was like, dude, Trump sold out in ways that really pissed me off. Like, he didn't really stand up to the establishment when it mattered. He didn't come in prepared. He didn't fire people that needed to be. You got to like look back at it and be like, he exposed the bureaucratic state, and I can thank him for that. But like, I don't think that DeSantis is going to be the guy to save people. I don't know who it is. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
I don't think there is anyone left in America.
Not at this moment, but it won't be a political figure. I think Michael Malice gets that right. He says it's not going to be a political figure that saves, like pushes this new trend for. Like, it's just not going to be a political person.
No, I think it'll be a war of some sort. It might be like a small civil thing or a big international thing.
Maybe.
But we'll see.
Yeah, I hope, if everyone goes against China and we just like destroy them, that'd be cool. But I don't want to kill other people either. They have a lot of people that are just like forced to live like this, and that sucks.
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. That's the problem. The only difficulty is that like, okay, well I won't say that because I know you'll just get pissed. But like,
No, I mean,
one of the no, because that's just going to take too long to explain, and I know it'd be frustrating. But like, I just think that in China there are a significantly higher number of people that do not give a fuck about Americans or Europeans, whether they are liberal, anarchist, centrist, conservative. They don't give a fuck. They just know you're not Chinese, which means you come at the bottom of the barrel. There are far more people in China that think that.
For sure.
Yeah, there's more people in China that think that than in the West, because obviously we have slightly freer allowances to kind of see things and think things. Obviously we are censored, but America is significantly censored. Sorry, America, Freudian slip. China is significantly censored, and I definitely would not want to see innocent Chinese people or innocent anyone die.
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're going to have a country that was going to be told what to do and probably wouldn't feel that bad about doing it, then you need look no further. But anyway.
Jesus. All right. I don't know, man. We'll just see. If war will happen, war will happen. I don't know. I hope not. But
well, me
nothing
too.
that you or I can do to stop it from happening.
Well, that's the truth. That's
At this
absolutely the
point,
truth.
and at this point, at least, unless like we decide to get into politics or something. I don't know.
Do you know what? Yeah, it just seems so. It just seems so unattainable, and like again, like when you look back in history, you see so many people trying, and the vast majority of them failed, and that's where I'm going to end on. Okay, cool. Well, that was up and down, I guess, in terms of depressing and not. I'm gonna go and fill up my car for $100,000 and yeah, my movie for today is going to be I don't know. I haven't thought of one. Oh, actually, it's going to be The Dark Knight. There you go.
Okay, there you go. I say go check out Dune. I think Dune was worth it. I think Dune is pretty good. The new Dune, anyway, by Dennis Villeneuve, whatever his name is. It's pretty good. I'm only gonna tell you to listen to an album. Go listen to the A Panic and a Riot by Sly Stone Family. It's pretty good. Just his anniversary. Go check out that album. It's good.
Okay. And I am gonna say go and listen to some Toto, because they had possibly the third best drummer of all time, Jeff Porcaro.
That's a big compliment.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks guys, and hopefully we will see you again soon.
Winston stopped writing, partly because he was suffering from cramp. He did not know what had made him pour out this stream of rubbish.